Hello and welcome, my name is Crash, and today we're going to be talking about some of the manga that I read this year, or to be specific, some of the manga that I completed this year. So we're going to be talking about my top 5 worst manga and the top 10 best manga. Without further ado then, let's start with number 5 of the worst manga that I read, and that is Doron Dororon. Doron Dororon really shows how good I had it this year. I think it really shows that I didn't read that many bad manga, because I don't think the manga is honestly that bad at all. I think what it does decently well. I think it had some decent characters, some decent fights, and some decent character designs and art style. There was definitely not really a lot of times where I felt like I wasn't enjoying the manga. But on the other hand, the reason why it did end up being so low that it ended up on the bottom 5 is because it really also didn't have anything unique to it. It was a very beat-by-beat battle shonen, a very generic one with nothing really that stand out to me. I think a lot of the things that I did well, the other manga were doing just as well or even better in the Shonen Jump at the same time. So I think it ended up being one of the worst manga that I read this year just from Jump alone, just based on that. Other than that, I think it had a rushed ending. Well, I don't think it had a rushed ending, especially because it got cancelled. And some manga can pull it off, some manga can grab a cancelled ending and do fine with it, or just go so off the rails that it is fun. Doron Dororon, as the vast majority of the manga that get cancelled, it didn't. And that always decreases some points, and that's why it ended up being on this list. Moving then on to number 4, we have Let's Bible, which is a really weird manga that I read because I was looking for works by a manga company called Variety Works, which they have done an adaptation of the Bible. And while that isn't translated, this one is. And what this manga is very weird. Essentially, Let's Bible is a battle shonen. We follow the descendant of an apostle as he meets Jesus. Except Jesus isn't the Jesus that we normally know. In this manga, Jesus Christ is actually a hot anime girl that the main character tries to lose their virginity with right from the start, which of course Jesus isn't too pleased with that. The manga, at least the first 2 or so chapters, are so ridiculous that it honestly almost didn't make it on the list, just based. Like, it's so dumb, it's so bad that it's actually fun. It is so blasphemous in a way that I don't think it even realizes that it is, that you can't even take it seriously. It's hard to be offended just with the contents, just based on how insane and bad they are. But it is, I think after the 3rd or so chapter, the manga really starts becoming a little bit more serious. And it is there that it kind of loses me. Because, I mean, I just told you the plot. It's not a manga that can be taken seriously. And when it does, that's when the flaws of... not only the flaws, but the blasphemy of all of it really starts to shine. Honestly, especially because it's also a battle shonen that got cancelled really early. It's not good. When it takes it a little bit more serious, it's not good. And that ends up being the majority of the manga. That is kind of why it ends up being on this list. On number 3, we have a manga that I've talked about a lot in this channel. I've done a video just on it, and that manga is Earthchild. Again, I've done a video going beat by beat about everything that I think is wrong with Earthchild, why I think it failed, and even the things that I think should have done better. But if I want to describe why the manga is on this list in one word, would be mess. The manga is a gigantic mess. Some plots don't go nowhere. They are introduced just to be dropped in the next chapter, or sometimes even in the same chapter where they get introduced. It's clear that the mangaka doesn't really know what to do with the characters and what to do with the plot. And that ends up being not really the worst Shonen Jump manga I've ever read, but really easily one of the worst, and certainly the worst Jump manga of the year, by far to me. It's not even a competition. It's the worst one. Which means that the next 2 aren't going to be Shonen Jump stuff, which is always nice, because I feel like last year half of the list was Jump cancelled manga. So in number 2, we got the That Game of the list. And every year I end up reading one or more That Game manga, and because of the nature of That Game manga, more often than not they end up being on these lists. Last year it was Rule, this year is In the Room. Now, In the Room is just your traditional that game manga. I really don't know how to describe it much more than that. A bunch of people get into a room that really looks like straight up out of Silent Hill or Saw. There's a monster that they have to defeat, and they end up being kind of killing each other nonetheless. It has all of the cliches that you kind of are to expect from a that game manga. Now, to be fair, I almost thought this wasn't going to be on the list, because on the very first chapter we're introduced to this main character, which is honestly a main character that plagues, like a stereotype that plagues my bottom lists, which is this L copycat that is very edgy, very smart. A lot of these that game manga, they try to have this kind of like tropey character, and a lot of other bad manga that I read, they tend to have it. I really don't like it, but the manga ends up subverting my expectations by killing that character at the end of chapter 1. I thought it was a pretty cool move, but it's also the first hint to things to come. The fact is that the mangaka really wants us to realize that he is subverting our expectations. He's constantly trying to subvert our expectations to give us that a gotcha moment. And a lot of the times, it's not that cool, it's not that smart. I feel like it comes to the detriment of the manga. I do gotta admit it though, I think the manga at least has a coherent plot, which a lot of these don't have. And of course, I know this is the bare minimum, but for that game manga, it really isn't. The only two things that I don't think make sense at the end of the manga, how one of the characters finds out the plot twist. I don't think that it made much sense. I'm not gonna spoil it. I don't know why I'm not gonna spoil it, but and then there's this fact, like the manga is called In the Room. It's called that because in the world of the manga, there's a video game called The Room, and a bunch of characters point out that the room where they get in at the beginning of the manga really looks like that video game. Except it doesn't, right? It doesn't. They show us the video game at the beginning of the manga, and it's like this fantasy MMORPG with dragons and elves and wherever, and sword fights. And the room they're in, again, it's something just straight up out of like Silent Hill. So it doesn't at all. And I don't know why the author decided to make that connection there, where it's kind of like, oh, it's an isekai, but it really isn't. But yeah, it's not that good. The characters really are annoying. I think that's like a trope of these mangas. A lot of the characters really are annoying. That is it. It's a short, okay-ish manga. I don't think it's really that horrible. I've read worse that game manga, but this one definitely isn't on the top either. So that it is number 2, and honestly, number 1 was really not only the worst manga that I read, it was only the only manga that I really call bad. Well, I mean, that's why Lord Charlotte and In Room are bad, but they're not the worst. So the number 1 is Batou Shoujo, and this was recommended to me by a friend on Twitter, and I should not have taken the recommendation. The only reason why I read it is because it was 30 chapters, so it's not a one-shot, but each chapter was a page, so it was a really easy read. I think it took me 5 minutes to read all of it, probably not even that. And the thing is, this manga is just a fetish, right? It is essentially just a fetish. It has no story, it has no characters, it really has nothing. Every page is like just one panel of this girl doing something weird with about her feet. There's feet fetishes. That's essentially the main topic of this manga. Yeah, that's it for 30 pages, and it's not even like it gets naughty or becomes an hentai or something like that, where it really, like, if you're into the fetish, at least there's something for you. I really feel like even if you are, it doesn't. Like, I'm not part of that demographic. I don't have that fetish, so maybe that's why it didn't work for me. But honestly, I really think that even if you are kind of like the target demographic of that manga, I don't think it's not gonna do anything for you. That is my opinion. So it really is an amount, like, it's 30 pages of nothingness, and even though it lasted for 3 to 4 minutes, I still felt like it was a little bit of a waste of time for something that short. Having in mind that I read manga that I hate that took me months to read, yeah, it is bad, and don't bother with it. I don't think most of you are gonna bother with it anyways, But if you needed me to tell you that don't bother with it, don't bother with it. That is the 5 worst manga I read this year. But before we move into the best, we need to have a word from our sponsor. Yes, a sponsor. Yes, Shrine Comics. So I heard you guys asking, hey Crash, what's Shrine Comics? And I'm glad you asked. Shrine Comics is a manga publishing platform that publishes original content by creators from all over the world. Not only that, but it's a 100% free to read platform. Yes, all manga content on the platform is free to read to everyone. And I mean everyone. Contrary to some other manga reading applications that I'm not gonna name, the Shrine Comics app is available worldwide, so even I can read it. It also doesn't matter if I have an iOS or an Android, as the app is available on both platforms. And even if you don't read on mobile phones, they also currently have a web browser. It's on beta, but it works wonderfully already. However, you'll be missing on the gacha system that they have on the app, where you can collect avatars for your profile or stickers for your comments of all your favorite characters of their series. There's currently 15 ongoing series, ranging from action to romance to mystery to everything in between, so you'll be bound found something you really enjoy. If you want my recommendation, I quite enjoyed Punch Drunk by Noir. It's a fighting manga where the main character, Valerie, tries to follow the footsteps of her father and join the SVC. There's only 10 chapters as of today, but it has a wonderful story and some cool fights that are bound to appeal to everyone who enjoys the insanity of Baki. It's definitely born out of the same mold, but with big buff women, which I know a lot of you enjoy. I've also checked the Twitter account of the author, and they really like Chainsaw Man, which is always a plus. If you want to join in and read Punch Drunk and all the other series in Shrine Comics, you can check their website or download the app in the links in the description below. So thank you for sponsoring the channel, and without further ado, let's talk about the best manga I read this year. So on number 10, we have One Piece, Episode A, which is a 4-chapter manga drawn by Boichi, which is based on the novel of the same name, which the novel follows the story of Ace from when he left to build his own pirate crew, the Spade Pirates, to when he eventually ended up joining the Whitebeard Pirates. I think the first half of the manga, the first 2 chapters, are cool, but the really good part ends up being on the final 2, where we get to see Ace's bond with Whitebeard really form and grow, while he constantly tries to defeat this mammoth of an emperor. It's really fun, it's really well drawn because it is Boichi, and it has, especially towards the end, the final chapter really has some really wonderful, really beautiful chapters, moments, I mean. It's a manga that is only going to appeal to One Piece fans, and even to One Piece fans, I know it is a bit short. There is probably a lot of things that were cut from the original novel. I really want to check it out and see for myself. So that's why it's on the bottom of the list, but honestly, it is really fun, and if you are a One Piece fan and you haven't checked it out, you really should. On number 9, we got Pink. Yes, this is the only one I own physically. Well, actually, that is a lie. So, Pink. This year I ended up reading a lot of this mangaka's works. Kyoko Okazaki. She has Pink, Helter Skelter, and River's Edge. I wasn't a big fan of the first one I read, which was River's Edge. I thought there was a lot of things that I didn't really like. Helter Skelter was fun, but Pink is really her best work out of all those 3. At least I think she has more stuff, and I think like a lot of her works are very dark and tragic. I think tragic is more so the word rather than dark. That's something the case with Pink. But where I think the others fail due not really just from the tragedy being so overwhelmed, I guess, but also because I really didn't enjoy the main character, especially of River's Edge. I really didn't enjoy the characters. They're all really despicable people. In Pink, it kind of works. Even though the fact that the main character is also not really the best of people. The main character in this one is a prostitute who ends up dating a male prostitute who's actually dating her mom at a point, or not really dating, but you get it. And so the main characters really aren't that nice, but this one works because the main character is so naive in a lot of regards, and the reason why it's called Pink is because she has like this obsession in buying cute pink stuff. And so she has like this very childlike personality while doing things very, I wouldn't even say mature, because they really are immature the way that she goes about it. Very adult, let's just say that. And you just keep getting dragged into the world of the character and trying to understand her. You never really do. It's almost impossible to to understand the main character, which I forgot her name, Yumi. And she also has a crocodile, which is a thing, a plot. I don't know, it is such an interesting story. You really have to read it, but it really is the main character. The thing that broke the other manga is the thing that really made this one. On number 8, we got Day War 11, which is a manga by Motohagio, which is like the 70s shoujo sci-fi, which a lot of people were comparing to Among Us, which is partially why I read it. This is not my first Motohagio manga, and she's a mangaka that I really enjoy pretty much everything that I've read so far. And Day War 11, I think, is probably my favorite out of the stuff I read from her. The thing about this one is the mystery. I think Asura, which is there, has a very similar plot, much more modernized, based on shonen. But if you like that one, you're probably gonna enjoy They Were 11. These 11 characters are stuck in a spaceship, and they know that one of them is an imposter, and they need to understand and figure out who that person is. Throughout the manga, we get to know all of these characters, all the 11 characters, and all of them are really, really interesting, especially the androgynous main character. Again, it has a really nice mystery, beautiful art. I think Motohagio has some amazing paneling. She and the others from the year 24, but definitely I feel like Motohagio was definitely one of them, really pushed the panels forward in manga in ways that they haven't seen before, and honestly we still don't see often now, but definitely influenced a lot the way that people draw manga. If you like paneling and unique paneling, definitely check this one out. If you like a good mystery, definitely check this one out. If you like shoujo, definitely check this one out. If you like 70s manga, definitely check this one out. Just go check it. Essentially, just go. It's fun. So on number 7, we have the big Shonen Jump title to end this year, which is Dr. Stone. Now, this is the second title by Boichi to be in this list, honestly just because Boichi is such a great artist. And there were a lot of moments where I thought Dr. Stone would be way higher on a list like this, because there were definitely moments throughout this run where it felt like it's going to be one of my favorites manga in Jump in general. And while it's very, very high on that list, I think there are definitely some parts here and there that really made it lose some spots. I think especially the ending was a little bit too confusing. The final couple of arcs, especially, like, they were a little bit rushed. But when Dr. Stone is good, it really is great. I think it's a manga where it has some wonderful, like, amazing arcs. I think the best point is the characters, Senku, Chrome, Jin, the captain character, and his brother that appears towards the end of the manga. Like, a lot of these characters, Kawaku is also pretty nice. A lot of these characters are like exaggerations of this super smart, super good character. It works so well to have like this group of almost superhuman characters in normal things, like the guy or the girl, I don't remember, that was super good at doing bread, for example. Suka wasn't the super amazing character in the beginning, or at least not in like character writing, but in like her abilities. But she's a character that really grows. There's an amazing part involving her that I don't want to spoil, but it's one of the best parts of the manga in general. And there's just so much good stuff in it overall, that even though, again, it has a rushed ending, it has some parts where it wasn't as good, I think it is okay. I think it definitely, the manga overall still is amazing, still is one of the most interesting Jump manga that I've read. The entire concept of rebuilding humanity and being almost like a civilization game, and being like this educational story that is very entertaining. Not many manga artists could pull it off. I don't know, just the fact that it exists is amazing. So yeah, it is definitely one. If you want to check a Shonen Jump manga that is a little bit different from normal, that is not a pure battle shonen, but still has a lot of elements of it to it, definitely check Dr. Stone. I think I don't need to recommend it that often, because I know a lot of you probably have read it already. But if you haven't, go read it, as well as go read every other manga that I talk about in this list from now on. Most of the next ones are going to be a little bit on the shorter side, And that starts with number 6, which is Heroes by Inu Asano. Now, Inu Asano is one of my favorite mangaka. Most of his manga that I read, I really, really like. There's definitely one or two, What a Wonderful World, for example, that I don't think is as good. Heroes, however, is such a fantastic subversion of the shonen, of the battle shonen tropes, with these wacky, strange, bizarre, melancholic, and absurd characters that Isino loves to write. I think it pushes what he's done with Dead the Demons in terms of like character designs and things like that to a new level. And yeah, honestly, it's a 1 volume long manga. It's really short, it's really to the point, but if you like the Inu Asano stuff, you're gonna love this manga. And especially, I think, if you want to check something that grabs that battle shonen tropes and completely destroys it, definitely check this one out. And keeping on the dark side, we have on number 5 Takopi's Original Sin, a short 2 volume manga in Shonen Jump Plus. The mangaka is actually doing the Ichinose's Family's Deadly Sins on Shonen Jump right now, and that manga is also kind of dark and tackles a lot of bullying themes. And Takopi's Original Sin is essentially the same, but much darker, much more depressive. It's definitely not a manga for doesn't like or can't stomach some heavy themes. The way the first chapter ends is quite powerful, and yeah, what I think makes this one really good, and honestly even better than Ichinose's, which I've seen a lot of people not liking that one. First of all, Ichinoze is very confusing, while Takopi is also very confusing, and that is because there's a lot of plot twists and a lot of like confusing thread lines going around within the manga. It does make more sense when you finish it, the way that it handles like the main character. There's definitely like less comedic moments and less heartwarming moments in this one. Everything is really just heart-wrenching, which often I don't like. There's a lot of times where a manga that's just like depressive from beginning to end, where it doesn't have like something like happy moments or some comedic moments, even if it ends very, very dark, or even if 90% of the manga is very, very dark. I think those little heartwarming moments makes the manga so much better, in my opinion, just like in general. I think Takopi, it does have, to be fair, it does have some moments, not many, but everything really, even if it starts wholesome, it quickly derails in ways that keep you always on your toes and keep you feeling uncomfortable and unsafe while reading this manga, which is something that I do enjoy. When a manga really legitimately makes you feel uncomfortable, you want to continue, but at the same time you don't, because it's painful to read in a good way. And this one is definitely that kind of way. I think that one of the things that I do like is a little bit of the subversion of the Raimon formula, and I kind of want to make a video just on that at some point. But it does grab that idea of the Raimon and the fun of the Raimon, which is something that I love. You can see there. But it does grab that fun and that formula that it uses so much, and it just completely, utterly destroys it in such a predictable way, where it kind of uses the exact same message. The way it does go at it is just so much heavier than Doraemon. And I keep saying that, it's heavier, it's darker, but it really is a manga that is hard to swallow. I compared it a little bit to Goodnight Punpun. I feel like at times it's even harder, especially because it is a lot more condensed. It doesn't have the, slice of life, calm, even sometimes comedic moments that Punpun have. I think Punpun does handle it a lot better, but overall, Takopi is still an amazing manga, and if you like those kind of stories, go for it, because it's probably one that's gonna be on your favorites. And if you don't like those kind of stories, then stay away, because you're probably gonna hate it. On number 4, we got, I think this ranked on the exact same list last year, but I got Tobaku Akairoku Kaiji, which is Kaiji's part 2. So I think last year Kaiji part 1 got a number 4 or number 5 or something along those lines, and this year it gets again number 4. Even though, I'm gonna be honest, I think part 1 was definitely better than part 2. I think if this was the year where I read part 1 would probably rank like number 2. But it's still an overall a really fun ride. I think the Pachinko arc was particularly fun. Like, both arcs are really fun. I don't think any of them really reaches the highs of part 1, especially like the ending of part 1 really does not compare to the ending of part 2. Still, it is a really fun arc. The pachinko machine gets you on your toes, gets you getting up, getting excited with the manga. First arc, I think overall also does that really well. In that regard, I think like contrary to part 1 where it has 2 amazing arcs, but then in the middle it has like an arc that is not so good. Both are bangers. I just don't think both are as good as the 2 best of part 1. But overall, I mean, if you like Kaiji, if you like the first part of Kaiji, you're gonna still love part 2. It is more of the same, and I really want to get into part 3 and see how this thing continues, because yeah, it's fun. It's an amazing manga to read, and there's really nothing like it, or it has the same emotion and high and the same fun that you have reading a that game manga, but it's just completely different and so much better than 99.9% of that game manga on the market, honestly. As I'm losing my voice, number 3 is The Walking Man by Jiro Taniguchi. I've also read A Solitary Gourmet. I didn't finish it, which is why it is not on this list. It is a little bit more of the same. In that regard, I kind of do prefer Walking Man. I wouldn't like to have the 2 anyways on the top 10, because again, they are very much the same. But there's something really beautiful in the nothingness of The Walking Man, because every chapter is just the story of this man. He leaves the house and he finds himself on a park with a group of people walking by a riverside. It really doesn't go much more than that. But while reading it, especially like reading it physically, which I got the chance to do, I got the manga here, it is such a relaxing, calming experience. Just put on some music, grab a beer, a tea, or wherever, and read a chapter or 2 of this manga. It reads really fast. You can feel yourself relaxing, honestly. It is an experience that I've only experienced reading this one and reading The Solitary Gourmet, which is again more of the same. In this case, is a man going on different restaurants and trying different food. I don't know, I'm falling in love with Jiro Taniguchi, and The Walking Man is definitely a really good manga if you want to start with him. I'm still not sure if I like it more than I like A Distant Neighborhood, which is a manga that I read so many years ago from him. That one definitely has a little bit more of a story, but The Walking Man, if you want just relax, feel a little bit better, if you want to get the motivation to get up and go yourself to walk like 5 minutes, 10 minutes on the street and then come back, definitely read Walking Man, because it is such a beautiful experience that you don't get often in any media. Then on number 2, we got a one-shot. Last year we got on number 1, we got Look Back. This year we got Goodbye Eerie. To be fair, I do think, I'm still not sure if I like Goodbye Eerie more than like Look Back. It is definitely one of the better works from Fujimoto, and Fujimoto just basically only does good works. But Goodbye Eerie is such a wonderful, strange thing that is really hard to do on manga. Like the way the story is told is really hard to pull it off. But on the other hand, it is something that can only be experienced as is in manga or in comic book form. The way that the panels go, the way that the story is told, cannot be in any other medium. And of course, I get it that it could be a movie, because the manga is trying to represent and is trying to imitate the feeling of a movie, right? That's the entire purpose of Goodbye Eerie, is that it is a movie in manga format. But that is kind of like the thing. If Goodbye Eerie was just a movie, it will be just that. It will be just another movie. It will be a strange, fun, experimental movie. But by being a manga, it is something that is completely different from everything else that I've read. As I said with Walking Man, it's such a wonderful experience to see, to read these different kinds of manga. And of course the story is confusing, it's strange, and it is beautiful. The way that it goes about being a memorial to his mother, then being a memorial to Harry, the main character, really not really the main character, but one of the main characters. It is such a beautiful story about medium, about the art, and about the heart of creation and the memories of the people that we love. I don't know, it is so much meaning in Goodbye Eerie that I can't tell you all about it in a 2 to 3 minute improvised description by a guy whose throat is absolutely dying at this point, it cannot be done. But god damn, that manga is something special. And for number 1, I got one of my all-time favorite manga. I've been seeing this since the manga was ongoing, and it finally ended this year, which is Dead Demons Destruction. I've done a single video on Dead Demons, on why it is the culmination of everything that makes my favorite mangaka, Hineo Asano, as well as why it also does things so much different than everything else that he has done up to that point. It is unique, it is strange, it is different, it is even better than Goodnight Punpun in my humble opinion. Again, I've done a video on why I think that, but just to not leave you like with nothing on the number 1 spot, it grabs the dark, depressive world or characters of Punpun and injects the same level of melancholy, same level of darkness in some ways that Punpun has in fun, strange, absurd characters. They are drawn with so much more expressiveness than they ever were in previous Asano works. They are so much more fun to read, so much more fun to follow. Like the characters, the way that they interact together, which is always like my favorite part of any manga, is fun. It reminds me of my favorite manga, which is Dorwe Toro. The way that those characters are in this dark, depressive world, but they are funny and they are wholesome and they are really fun to follow together, not individually but together. And Dead Demons is exactly that. These fun characters in this world that is actually genuinely about to end, and we follow these characters doing like these mundane things that we don't think we will do if our world was ending. But honestly, if it was ending at the slow rate that it is ending in real life and also in the manga, yeah, we would, and we are. I don't know, I think it has a much deeper message, a much interesting message about us than Punpun did. And yeah, the ending wasn't the best, I will admit it, but regardless of that, I still think this is among my top 5 favorite manga of all time. So just because of that, it definitely deserves top 1 this year. It would have been top 1 last year as well. Yeah. That is the list. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you give all these manga, especially the ones at the top 10, a check. The ones at the worst, the bottom 5, you don't need to check it out. Actually, I recommend you keep away from most of them. And again, I want to thank Shrine Comics for sponsoring the video. Links will be in the description. And that is it. There should be a video on my left right now. That video will be something that I don't know exactly what, but it is going to be a video. And if you watch this till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.